Theoretically, yes. How you perceived it is entirely down to you, I feel. Well, thank you very much. So if we can go into the agenda. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence and roll call. Before we go into roll call, I've received apologies from Councillor Priestley, Councillor Potter, Ms Harling, Councillor Gourlay, Councillor Heath, Councillor Hart, Councillor Buckler, Councillor Murphy and Miss Slack. Does anyone bring any other apologies? If not, can we go to the roll call, please, Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Members, please confirm your attendance and any declarations of interest. Mr Smith.
Present and no other declarations of interest.
Councillor Beer.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Mr Beresford.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Councillor Brady.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Chaplin.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Farrell.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Fryer.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Greaves.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Gregory.
Present, no declarations.
Professor Haddock-Fraser.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Hanley.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Hartshorn.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Huddleston.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Nash.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor O'Leary.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Richardson.
Present, no declarations.
Dr Swetnam.
Mike.
Present and no declarations.
Mr Thompson.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Warmby.
Present and no declarations.
Miss Witter.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Woods.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, members. Agenda item 2, urgent business. I've not been notified of any, nor of any public participation requests under agenda item 3. In which case we can move to agenda item 4, which is the new pay grade structure. Teresa Reid, to introduce.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And good morning on this frosty morning. I just wanted to say right at the start that I'm really pleased that we've got to this stage, that we've been on a long journey with the pay review, and hopefully this is the culmination of a number of reports to authority, and including the workshop that we had a fortnight ago, which was very good and useful for me to get that opportunity to discuss in more detail with members. So thank you. So the purpose of the report is to inform the authority about our current labour market position and to seek a decision from members on the proposal for a new pay grade structure. The key issues, as you've all been aware of, is that our pay structure has been falling behind competitors for a number of years. This has led more recently to an increase in our employee turnover rate and an increase in the number of hard-to-fill vacancies. It's become more of a challenge for local government to keep the headroom between the national living wage and the bottom of the national pay spine. The last 2 years' National Joint Committee Pay Awards have disproportionately been beneficial for the lower grades. This has led to larger variances for the higher grades from the public sector median. The economic environment remains volatile, and in the summer it was the highest regular annual growth rate since comparable records began in 2001. And the DEFRA grant freeze for national park authorities continues to be a challenge. So the recommendations are that members note the authority's market position of its pay structure in comparison to our direct competitors, and that members approve the new pay grade structure proposed, option 3B. For noting that members support the exploration of recruitment and retention initiatives, and that members support a review of the authority allowances. I've been working with colleagues in finance and with members of the staff committee and with our Unison reps. We've created a joint working group on pay, and the paper that I'm bringing today is the first of the 3 objectives. So we have 2 further objectives to look at: recruit and retention incentives and allowances. So this paper, the background sort of gives you the lead up to why we looked at pay. Pre-COVID, we knew that we were sort of below in our pay rate, but with our non-financial offers, we felt that we still were able to attract, and actually our employer turnover rate remained low. But since COVID, a lot of organisations, our competitors, have all accepted and now have increased flexible working, and that just sort of eroded our advantage. And we started seeing a higher turnover. I thought it was on. Sorry, my mic wasn't on. Can you? I thought we were shouting loud enough though. Can you all hear me fine? Thank you. So I think we all understand how we've got to this position. In late 2022, when we started to look at the possibility of revising our pay structure, we did some pay modelling. And at that point in time, we shared it with members, and we looked and saw what the cost was to get us to the public sector median. But since that point in time, there has been a huge increase in wages across public sector. And our position, as it was known and shown to you in July, we have fallen behind where the public sector has now moved to. So in the report, you can see the first graph indicates where we currently are, and you can see that we are now behind the public sector median. Option 3, the graph below, shows that the public sector median has moved away from us. So the dark blue boxes show where the public sector median was and what we proposed we could afford. Option 3A graph, that shows where the public sector median is currently. That's the light blue line, and it shows if we put our grades to 102%, what it would look like. But as at the 15th of September, the projection costs for this are forecast to be almost £1 million more than the current structure costs, so completely unaffordable. So as a result of that, we consulted with staff on the previous graph, which was where the median was at the point in March earlier this year. Feedback from the staff was that they felt that the higher grades were being disproportionately advantaged. But as a result of recent years and the pay awards weighted towards the lower grade, that variance has become greater. And so for us to reflect the public sector median, it then became evident that we were going to have to give the higher grades more money to draw it up towards the public sector median. So with the result of feedback that we had from staff, they were keen that we uniformly followed the public sector median, because in the option that we had consulted upon, grade L, which is one of our higher grades, was significantly closer to the median. And so on the table that you can see on page 5, we had the current pay structure and the public sector median showing on the right-hand side. When we looked at it...
It's page 9 of the report before you. Sorry, Teresa.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 5 on my report.
It's 5 on yours, but 9 on the papers that members have.
What we can see on the left-hand side is our current pay structure with grades A to M, and this is mapped on the national pay spine. If we were to adopt the public sector median, that is how our pay grades are reflected on the right-hand side. And staff have asked that we can have a consistent distance from the public sector median. So when we looked at option 3, the only grade that was out of alignment with 2 scale points below the maximum of each grade on the public sector median was L. So by taking the L grade and moving it down 2 scale points, we then have a consistent distance from the public sector median. So that was proposed and taken back to staff committee in unison, and that was supported. And you'll have seen the Appendix 4 has the staff committee response to the final tweak on the pay grade structure. So that is the proposal that we go with. It's not quite where we wanted to be. I mean, our narrative was that we wanted to reach the public sector median, the regional public sector median. But the higher wage rates just got away from us. So this is the option that we put to you, that is still good news, that all staff will get a pay increase, and it takes us closer to the public sector median. And it is affordable. The risk for us with this is that it may still be insufficient to attract and retain some key staff in business critical posts. Therefore, we continue to look at what recruitment and retention incentives we can introduce. And similarly, we also want to have a look at our allowances that we pay our staff in comparison to our competitors. That's my report.
Thank you, Teresa. Members, we are where we are. As Teresa has said, we set off with the best of intentions to enable staff and recruitment to benefit from increases in the salary scales. As Teresa has said, things got away from us in just 8 months, and we aren't able to afford to be in the position which we wanted to be in. Nevertheless, we do feel that it's possible to afford to improve the benefits that can accrue to staff, and it's reflected in the recommendations. We're noting the pay structure. There's a proposed pay grade for us to consider, and recommendation is to adopt, and then to explore how we might both create and afford incentivisation measures for recruitment and retention, and to look at allowances that might also benefit our ability to recruit. And that, of course, is behind a lot of this, that we are having trouble recruiting appropriately skilled professional staff, professional and other staff. Members, it's over to you. Any comments or questions on the report or of Teresa? Andrew Gregory.
Thank you, Chair. Teresa, firstly, thank you so much for all the very intense and hard work you've done in relation to pulling this together before members today. It's clearly been a massive task with an awful lot of thought gone into this. And I think, as the Chair said, we are where we are with it. I think for me, it's just so frustrating that we're not able to get to a position where we can really focus on making certain that we can attract and retain the best people. And I suppose what I think about is, as I said, we are where we are. Are we doing enough to make certain that people out there know about what a great place it is to work here? I suppose that's my first point. And the second point is you mentioned about looking at allowances. Do people fully and properly understand the full package that's offered? Because quite often, in my experience, people look at the headline salary, and both employer and employee sometimes don't always think about all the other bits and pieces that actually go into the package, which are actually really important. So really two questions there.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've got a lot of people who know what a great place it is to work here, and I think that pay has been a growing issue for a number of years, and I think that it is really only because the pressure, the cost of living, that has led people to start looking elsewhere. So within our recruitment process, we are trying to promote what a great place it is to be. And in our package, what we are doing, we've got a brochure that shows what the total reward is, about our pension, about our sick leave, about our annual leave. These are all great things. But I fear at the moment the key driver is salary.
If there are no others, Janet Haddow-Fraser.
Yeah, thank you. I won't reiterate Andrew Gregory's points. I was going to make many of the same ones about the importance of recognising total reward package rather than just headline salary rate, but clearly it is because of cost of living issues and inflation. And interest rates has become more important. I mean, we wouldn't be in this position without the parlous state of government funding for national parks, but I think we can take that as given, as being a problem, and the flat cash for many years means that we can't actually cover full staff costs out of the DEFRA grant at the moment. Hopefully, at some stage, money will flow to help that, but in the meantime, I completely understand where we are with this pay strategy. Huge amount of work's gone into this, Teresa. Well done, it's fantastic. I mean, the amount of analysis and thought and options, but also seeing the extensive staff consultation process, not just the staff's views, which are, I think, incredibly thoughtful, but the thoughtful management responses as well. So thank you for letting us as members see all that, and also staff committee and the unison views. I'm completely supportive of option 3B. I think given the amount of analysis, it shows an option that is thoughtful and measured. There's risk attached there in future years, but there always will be given the flat cash state of government funding for us. But it's thoughtful about how we take that forward, and all that's being considered. The other issue that seems to be coming out is this sort of slight anxiety about it looks like it's big pay rises for the higher grades. Well, I was here when we gave the much higher percentage pay rises to the lower grades, and there was a reason for that at the time, and it flattened the line and it helped. But, looking at how much those higher grades are paid, given the responsibilities of those people and the work they put in over and above their jobs, their huge commitment to the organisation, actually, they're not being paid huge amounts given that huge responsibilities. So I have no problem at all in seeing those uplifts for the higher grades. I think it doesn't come a moment too soon to do that, because those officers do take a lot of responsibility on behalf of the authority, and I would like to see that supported. So I'm very supportive of all these recommendations.
Are you going to move them?
Yes, I'll move them.
Thank you, Janet. I'd certainly endorse your comment. Andrew seconded. Thank you, Andrew. Certainly endorse your comments about all that you said, but particularly about the consultation process. And I think also it's gratifying that staff have accepted the situation and have acknowledged where we are and have approved through that consultation process. Things could have been a lot more difficult, but I think there is a thank you to staff as well for their participation. Charles agrees.
Thanks, Chair. I fully support all 4 recommendations, and again, I think the consultation process and the involvement of staff has been great. There's one concern I'd like to pick up on, and it feels a little bit of a disconnect between, if you like, staff committee and Unison. So on page 53, under the Unison's response, it's towards the bottom end, but made some comments in respect of the proposal and how it benefits higher paid staff. But it goes on to say, I will therefore end on that note of morale. It has been battered by your restructure. Can you give us a comment about whether that's that view is, you think, is reflective of the general staff mood, or whether that's perhaps a view just taken by the union?
The response from the Unison was made in June, and we were really in the thick, if you like, of the organisational restructure. I don't think it is reflective now, now that we've gone through the pain, if you like, of the organisational restructure. But I think it's certainly, Dave Gorton is our Unison rep, and it was his reflections of the feelings of the people who were coming to him at the time. If you're asking me for my personal opinion, I don't think it does reflect the wider staffing at the moment.
Thank you, Teresa. Any other comments or questions? If not, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour of acceptance, please. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Any against? Thank you. So the recommendations have been approved in that case. If we can, thank you, Teresa. Move on to agenda item 5, which is the revised revenue budget. And Justine, who is the author of the report, isn't able to be with us today, but Emily Fox is going to introduce the report and field any questions that you might have. Thanks, Teresa. Emily, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. So the report in front of you is really on the back of the previous report that you've just approved. So having approved the revised pay strategy, members are now asked to approve a revised 2023-24 revenue budget. The authority has to have a balanced budget, which it's done in February of this year. It came to authority and members have approved it. And to continue to have a balanced budget, the changes as a result of organisational change and the pay strategy need to be fully funded. The paper in front of you sets out the changes to the following, which are the pay budget for January to March 2024, 3 project budgets changing and moving over the period that's already gone, an increase in planned use of reserves, an increase in the vacancy factor budget, an increase in interest received, and a proportion of the visitor centre donation being drawn down. The table at paragraph 15 of the report in front of you summarises the actual budget changes. And as the changes to the structure and the grades have long-term impact, this has been forecast into the medium-term financial plan through to 2027-28. And this is illustrated in the table at paragraph 16 of the report, and the assumptions for this are outlined at paragraph 18. To conclude, members are asked to approve the revised 2023 revenue budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. A lot of this was rehearsed at the finance workshop of a few weeks ago, members, so it should be familiar to those at least who were able to attend that workshop. Are there any comments or questions that anyone wishes to ask? Charles Greaves.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to support the recommendations, certainly for the amendment to the 23-24 budget. The concern I've got, I suppose, is with the forecasts for the medium-term financial plan. And it's in respect of the expected income from interest received. So there's two elements to that. We've seen a big increase in that because interest rates have gone up. Within the forecast, we're planning for the amount of interest to reduce as reserves are used, so the amount of money in the accounts will be dropping. But my concern rests with, as we progress through the plan, I think maybe we might be a bit optimistic in terms of what level of percentage interest we're going to receive. So my concern is perhaps that the amount of interest received needs to fall with two drivers: the reduction in reserves, but also maybe a reduction in rates. I'm just a bit worried it might be a bit over optimistic. As the further we go through the plan, the more optimistic that might be. I am absolutely comfortable with where we're at with the 23-24 amended budget. It's just the back end of that medium-term financial plan, and I had flagged it up with Justine. I'm not sure whether she'd looked at it yet, but I think for the purposes of this report today, I'm happy to support it. But I think it'd be just useful to hear back from Justine about what her thinking is around interest as we progress through that medium-term financial plan.
Okay. From memory, I think it was down from the 377 to about 200,000, wasn't it? The purported interest. Emily, did you deal with that?
Yeah, so thinking that this might come up, Justine and I had a discussion before the meeting, so have got a response to the question.
It's one that was prepared earlier, Charles.
So the base rate, from what Justine can find looking around at what others are looking at, and what it's obviously based on a prediction, but it's thought to be at the maximum currently that it will be. And into the future, we're forecasting that interest rates are likely to fall to 3% by late 2025. So we can obviously only predict and forecast so much into the future, but in the figures in front of you, that has been taken into account, both the forecasting that reduction in reserves, but also that potential reduction in interest as well. So we have been prudent in the figures that are in front of you today. And obviously we can update that as we move through the medium-term financial plan, because it's not a static document.
And presumably we'll be receiving next year's budget for approval in February time. So again, given the rate at which things change, that's 3 months or more away. So again, that can be addressed then. Yeah. You comfortable with the response, Charles? Thank you. Janet Haddock-Fraser.
Yeah, thank you for this. Can I just ask about the money that we're getting for the visitor centres? Are we drawing that down in equal amounts for each of the 3 years? Or are we drawing down more in future years? I can't remember what the total was we were getting.
There's 3 years of funding. Those 3 years don't match our financial years. So we're taking some this year, we're taking kind of some of a year's worth of money. And in terms of front loading it, we are a bit, because we know we have the consultancy costs for reviewing the visitor centres, and that's being funded out of the donation. So that's happening early on in the 3 years. So that's coming out of it. There's a kind of a wider point around within those 3 years, if we start early enough in transforming the performance of visitor centres, we should see the deficit that visitor centres normally have decreasing, and we could have kind of spare money, if you like, from that donation if visitor centres perform really well in turning themselves around as we go on. But we don't know that yet, so we're ensuring ourselves, we're saying we're covering the existing deficit over the years, and if they do really well, then brilliant, we'll have some options for doing something else with some of that money.
Happy with that, Janet? Joel, James Beresford.
Charles Beresford.
Or even James.
Thank you. I mean, I entirely support this and would move the recommendations. I think it's just worth pointing to paragraph 16. We can look forward to the immediate future with some comfort, can we not? But when you look further ahead in 27, 28, the task that we have in front of us in terms of generating sustainable income is not an insubstantial task. So I think we can look forward with some comfort, but with some, not trepidation, but with some determination to try and turn that figure around in future. Not wishing to sound depressive in any shape or form, I don't think we're going to have huge amounts of new central government money to do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that insight, James. And yeah, I think it does emphasise, as you say, what the priorities are for the future to address those issues. Are there any other questions or comments anyone wishes to make? In which case, is someone willing to move the recommendation? Andrew and Ken Richardson seconded. Thank you very much. Have a show of hands, all those in favour of the recommendation? Any abstentions? One. Any against? No. So the recommendations are approved and the revised budget is as depicted in the paperwork. Thank you, members. That brings us to the close of this extraordinary meeting. Thank you for your attendance. And I believe that P&R is due to kick off at 11:15.